watching James. My name's James, you're watching me, and I am talking about watches. Well, for the longest time I've been trying to find myself the perfect G-Shock, and I haven't been able to find it. It hasn't ticked all the boxes that I wanted from it. So I've sort of gone outside the G-Shock range to try and find something else, and I think I may have found a watch that is better than a G-Shock. It might be a G-Shock killer. Well, maybe it might not be. Let's see how we go. But let's talk about why I looked outside the G-Shock range to look for a watch that exactly fitted what I needed from a G-Shock. I've owned quite a few G-Shocks over the years, but I always come across the same issue again and again. And it mostly has to do with me, the things that I want from a G-Shock and the reasons why I want to own one. I predominantly use a G-Shock as a work watch, a watch that is able to be bashed around, a watch that it needs to be tough, a watch that I can sort of get dirty and not worry too much about. Which is why I always like looking for a G-Shock, because they are the quintessential perfect watch for this reason. However, there are 6 particular boxes that I want ticked when I buy a G-Shock. Firstly, they need to be tough, and absolutely every G-Shock ticks this box nice and easily. These are the perfect watch to buy a tough watch. So that one has not been an issue. Secondly, they need to be legible. And for me, I need that to be at a glance legible. I mean, have a quick look at wrist, then I know exactly what the time is, what the day of the week is, and what the date and the month of the year is. That's what I mean by legible. Some of these G-Shocks out there, they're fantastic watches, but they're not exactly legible. They look good, but at a glance, there's no way that I'm picking out the day of the week or the date or even possibly the time sometimes. So they're not always legible. And that leads me into number 3, a backlight. Now the backlight doesn't actually have to be perfect. I'm not looking for it to be absolutely iridescent. I like it if it is, but what it needs to do and allow is, again, that date, time, day of the week needs to be at a glance legible at night using that backlight. Fourth, it needs to be affordable. It needs to be at a price that I can justify, especially when this is a work watch for me. This is a watch that I'm going to beat around. I don't really want to spend too much money on it, because if I spend too much money on it, I won't want to use it in the circumstances that I've bought it for. Number 5, it needs to have a little bit of substance. Now what I mean by this, it doesn't need to be some heavy chunky watch, but it needs to feel like sort of there is something there. I need to feel the strap, sort of understand that there is some sort of toughness there. It needs to have a sort of a feel and a sort of, I don't know, a look on the wrist. And not every Casio G-Shock has this. Some have a sort of a resin strap that perhaps reminds me more of just one of the cheaper, super affordable Casios. And lastly, I want to like the watch. If I'm wearing this watch so much throughout the day, whilst working, whilst doing activities which I know a watch is going to be beaten about, I want to be able to look down and actually like it. After all, I'm a lover of watches, I'm an enthusiast, I want to be able to like that watch that is on my wrist. So the issue I've had though is, out of these 6 sort of boxes that I need to tick, I've only ever been able to tick 5 of those boxes. And there's 3 particular watches that I've sort of come across that I like and that I think sort of has done the job for me, but they've only ticked 5 of these 6 boxes. Firstly is my watch that I've owned for over 10 years. It has served me very, very well. It has done exactly what I wanted done to it. It is tough, it is legible, it has a great backlight, it was super affordable, it had some real substance to that brand. It actually felt nice and thick and felt sort of substantial, but I didn't particularly like it. Now, I'm not going to say that I dislike it, and I think I'm going to say this about a lot of the G-Shocks. There's a lot of G-Shocks in the range, and I don't dislike many of them. It's more that I sort of think, well, it's okay, or I don't dislike it. It's not, wow, look at that G-Shock, that looks fantastic. So it's more about just sort of not really loving the look of the watch on my wrist. Secondly is the 5600, which absolutely ticks the box of me liking the look of it. I think this is a fantastic looking watch. I think it is the quintessential G-Shock. However, there is one of the boxes that doesn't get ticked for me, and it is the substance box. Now, don't get me wrong, this is a tough watch. You could bang it around, crash it around, no problems at all. However, the strap and the case, to me, it just feels a bit more like one of those super affordable Casios rather than a thick, sturdy, chunky G-Shock. So there was that sort of box that didn't feel ticked for me, so it wasn't the perfect G-Shock for me. Lastly, there is the full metal version of that watch, which absolutely ticks that substance box. In fact, it ticks it more than big tickets. It's like 3 ticks there because I love watches on bracelets. It is now a full metal version. Perfect. So now it ticks almost all the boxes, except for it is no longer affordable. And again, I don't want this style of watch that's not affordable. Now, I did try to sort of subvert this sort of problem by getting a AliExpress sort of conversion kit for it, but it just didn't work. It didn't fit on my wrist. It didn't look very good. So me trying to cut that sort of cost corner didn't work out for me. It was fine, but it wasn't quite right. So with all this in mind, I've looked away from the G-Shock range, trying to find another watch that perhaps does tick all of these 6 boxes. And I have to say, that's not actually an easy thing to do. There's a good reason why G-Shock is sort of the king in this sort of field, because they are fantastic watches. But I think I may have found one. I think I may have found a G-Shock killer. So before we flip the camera around, if you haven't subscribed on the channel, I'd really love it if you just click on that subscribe button. But let's flip this camera around now and let me show you the watch that I think possibly might kill the G-Shock. Or at least it may be a competitor of the G-Shock. Or maybe it won't. Let's flip the camera and let's check it out. Before we jump into this box, before I show you what I think may be a competitor of the G-Shock, I want to say it comes in lots of different variations, different colors, different materials. This one here is a stainless steel model. It is particularly heavy because of that, but I went for that one because I quite like wearing stainless steel. But keep in mind, it also comes in resins and different colors, positive and negative displays. So what is it? Well, it's a Nixon Regulus stainless steel black, model number A126800000. Well, did you expect that? I certainly didn't expect that. I'd heard about this brand a couple of times, but nothing in their range remotely interested to me at all. But this one, it stood out to me, and whilst it's been in hand, it has stood out to me even more. Packaging itself is actually quite nice. Comes with a little hang tag. Should say the price, yep, $349.99 Australian dollars. There was a discount of 20% straight up, so I got it for around about $300. I have looked on the secondary market for these watches, and there is very little out there. Comes with a bit of information about it, comes with a little top, and let's check this out. Look at that. I am nicknaming this thing the Beast because it is an absolute beast. And I do have to say, I do quite like it. It is absolutely solid stainless steel all the way around. Complete solid stainless steel head of the watch, stainless steel bracelet. Yeah, absolutely. Let's move this around and let me show you this watch properly. So as I said, the first thing that stood out to me was actually the sheer weight of it. And I have to say, when the package arrived, when I lifted the box, I went, whoa, what is in that? Because that weighs an absolute metric ton. And before I even get into this any further, I am going to weigh it for you because I am absolutely not lying to you that this is a heavy watch. Now, I don't normally weigh on a screen here, but this one deserves it because who might check this out? Now, can you read that? That says 225 grams, 225 grams. That is by far the heaviest watch in my collection, and that is after it's been sized to my 6 3/4 inch wrist. So yes, it's a heavy watch. That is one of the reasons why I did mention it also comes with resin, because that would obviously be significantly lighter. It is also a very thick watch, and whilst we're there, whilst we are talking about measurements, let's check out exactly how thick this thing is, because it's a bit of a monster there. 15.7 millimeters. Yep, that's a thick watch. That doesn't bother me at all though, because this style of watch, I don't mind it being thick, chunky and heavy. It's going to be something solid on my wrist. It's not a dress watch by any means. But why do I think this might be a G-Shock killer? Well, I think it looks tough. It certainly feels tough. The case, the materials, absolutely tough. Is the module sort of kept as tough or as surrounded like the G-Shock? Well, I'm not 100% sure. It's absolutely legible. You can read it really easily. It's got your time, day of the week, date. In here are 2 stopwatches, which I'll show you that in a minute. It is further legible with the backlight, which is fantastic. There are 3 levels of lighting for this backlight. You can have it as low light, mid light, or maximum light. I've got it set for maximum light at the moment. It is affordable, $300. That is for the stainless steel version. That is the most expensive version they have available. The resin versions are about $100 less. Absolutely has some substance to it. Wow, does it have substance to it. It has 225 grams of substance to it, and I really like it. I think it looks really cool. Yes, it's a big watch. Yes, it's a chunky watch, but this for me is a work watch. It's a tool watch. It does what I want it to do. But let me just show you around the watch first of all. We've got the mode button, the light button. We've got two other buttons on the side. This doesn't sort of look like composite or something, but it isn't. This is absolutely steel, 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 steel. Full stainless steel. It is completely solid. Has a small clasp on it. It is not milled. However, for this size sort of bracelet, because it is so wide, I think it's 24 millimeters wide, it actually kind of suits it, and I don't think I'd want it to be any heavier with any more milled steel in there. On the back there, you can see that's actually etched in. It's actually quite a nice deep etching as well. Nixon Regulus stainless steel, 100 meters, all stainless steel China movement. I'm not 100% sure what movement is inside this. When I do a full review of it, I will go into that further. It does have the Nixon branding sort of screwed on top there. There is quite a big dramatic change from 24 mil down to about 20 mil or 22 mil, I believe it is. It's very, very nice. All brushed, all brushed. It's actually really nicely brushed as well. And the overall quality and substance of this watch feels very substantial. I get the feeling they've bought a tank, they've chopped it in half, they've melted down half of that tank, and they've made this watch out of it because it is significantly chunky, heavy, and substantial. Now let's check out the functionality of this. I don't really know how this works because it is fresh out of the box only a short time ago. Bottom left, oh, it's 2022. Well, that is correct. And oh, back to the date. All right, top left, let's see what happens there. I think that is a second time zone. And now back to where we were. Second time zone, back to where we were. Second time zone, back to where we were. Okay, mode button, what does that do? Oh, here's the stopwatch. So now it's dual stopwatches with dual buttons. And you can see now that the middle line has changed from stopwatches to actually the time and the date, which I think is quite cool. So if we start the stopwatch, pause the stopwatch, start the stopwatch, pause the stopwatch. I assume we can start them again. I assume we hold to reset. Absolutely. Look at that. Isn't that cool? So you got dual timing stopwatches. Good backlight. The next one here, oh, we got a timer. We've got alarms. And we're back to the original. So yeah, there we have the Nixon Regulus. Wow, it really does feel like a tank. I'm quite impressed. But at that sort of weight, how does it look and how does it feel on wrist? Well, I think it looks exactly what you'd expect. It looks substantial, but I actually quite like it. Looking down the wrist, yeah, it's not exactly a thin watch, but yeah, there is some substance to that. Now, a couple of things I do want to note, besides that weight, besides that thickness, is that I've got a 6 3/4 inch wrist, but I only had to take 2 links out of this bracelet to make it fit. So even though it is a huge, chunky watch, if you've got a massive wrist, I'm not sure if this one would actually fit you. You might have to get some extra links. Only 2 levels of micro adjust as well, which made me have to fiddle with it a little bit, but it does fit me nicely now. So there we go. So that brings me to the question that I posed in this video. Is this a G-Shock killer? And let me say, before this arrived, I'd sort of thought through this video already, and my idea that I was going to talk now was going to be, well, I don't know. I've only had it a half a day. I can't really tell you that. I'm going to have this watch in possession for a long time to get a really good understanding. That was my thoughts that I was going to say now. However, now that it is in hand, I think there is a distinct possibility that this is a G-Shock killer. Or at least it is an alternative version to something substantial, something that you can wear on wrist in similar situations to the G-Shock, because it has everything going for it that the G-Shock does, but it has a better, more increased legibility, well, at least in my eyes. I think the backlight is just as good. The construction is better, having full stainless steel like that. It's definitely more affordable than the G-Shock. The only thing I have to say that I can't sort of explain is how good the resistance of that module is, or what that module is. So can it take the bangs and the crashes like a G-Shock can? Well, I can't tell you that. But what I am going to do, just like I was going to do anyway, is I'm going to turn this into my work watch. I'm going to wear it for a considerable amount of time, well beyond my normal sort of 4 to 6 weeks. I'm going to have this on wrist for 3 to 6 months, and I'm going to see what it's like. And then I'm going to do a full in-depth review of it so that I can give you a proper sort of understanding of whether this watch is actually worthwhile owning or whether you should just go back to G-Shocks because they are the standard, they are fantastic. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. I hope that I've brought to you something a little bit interesting, maybe something you might want to look into yourselves. I do hope to see you in the full review of this in quite some time, but I've got some more videos coming out in between now and then. Absolutely, at least 3 a week. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope to see you in one of those extra videos.